All right, let's move right along. No. So we'll talk about uh, some HF operations. The first part is about the volunteer monitor program. Anybody involved with that? I guess those are snitches, right?
Get stitches. Yeah, but I have the radio on it, yeah.
In 2019, somebody started it. I don't know who. Uh, and they have amateur volunteers who enlist to monitor the airwaves for improper operation. But, outside the band, uh, bad language, things like that that violate FCC rules.
I've certainly heard that.
Now, there must be some around because I've heard of people reporting things. So, what is the volunteer monitoring program? Which of the following are objectives of the volunteer monitoring program? Delta. What procedure may be used? Oh, I missed that one.
How we get volunteer.
Huh? Let's go back to that. It was probably hiding somewhere on that chart. Oh, yeah.
Does this monitoring include CB violations of power?
What kind of violations of power?
CBs running kilowatt
Oh,
amperes.
11 meters.
I suppose, although in this case it's amateur, so I don't know that they're looking at the 11-meter band,
They still go that. They still do.
but certainly would be looking for people that are exceeding 1,500 watts on the amateur bands. Of course, I'm not sure how you tell if somebody's got 1,500 watts in a single little dipole, or somebody that's got 100 watts and a big Yagi array.
Oh, yeah. How do you know? Stack, yeah.
But anyway, it's to promote self-regulation. What procedure may be used by volunteer monitors to localize a station whose continuous carrier is holding a repeater on in their area?
Yeah, you got a question for something, you didn't really have a. I was came up during hours, man, all the time, I call into the repeater, had it shut off and stuff. Paper me?
Well, that was another one on there.
Direction finding.
Direction finding, but
That's not the options.
it doesn't.
Kind of what the problem is.
So how does that apply? Well, the carrier's always on. So,
Well, you got the input, so you gotta be checking the uplink to the.
so the only thing dealing with direction finding is Bravo, because you're looking at the beam heading.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking that.
And then you got other monitors, so I guess you're doing cross correlation.
Yeah, triangulation or something.
Yeah. And right, it's Bravo.
Yeah.
We figured that one out. People that are basically doing DX will usually put up a directional, some sort of beam, a Yagi or a quad or something that is very directional so that you can project your power in just one direction. And in order to figure out where to point it, you need to look at an azimuthal projection map, which is just a map showing bearing and distance from your location. And you can go on the internet and tell them what your QTH is and print out a bearing, an azimuthal map where you're in the middle. Yeah.
It distorts everything.
Yeah. Which of the following describes an azimuthal projection map? Okay, most of the propagation type communications is taking place on the short path. Although I'm not sure how you know,
Yeah.
because sometimes the long path is better. I think the only way, if you were getting an echo and doing both, you'd have an echo on the long path, but
they'd be delayed in time, it'd be different in time, right?
It's like that.
yeah, but if you're just doing short or long, there's what do you reference it to? There's
Yeah. And if you hear both of them with the delay, you don't know which one's which.
Exactly.
true.
Do you think the short path would be the first one?
Well, yeah.
But basically, the whole thing here is that the long path is 180 degrees from the short path. So how is the directional antenna pointed when making a long path contact with another station? So you look at your azimuthal map, and instead of pointing where it says, you do the opposite.
How do you figure out the propagation? How it propagated if you've got a contact? I mean, where's
It's magic. Oh, yeah, they recommend, it's not required, that you use the NATO phonetic alphabet. Usually on nets, they just recommend a phonetic alphabet. And you hear a lot of different phonetic alphabets. But the standard NATO one starts with Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta.
Say that again.
Alpha, Bravo,
Oh,
Charlie,
okay.
Delta.
All right.
Yeah, like the-
Not Apple, Brevard, Chicago.
America,
Zoom, not Z.
I think the foreign countries tend to use city names. I've heard London and
Yeah,
Berlin and
I've heard that, yeah.
they use sugar instead of Sierra for us.
Yeah, sugar?
That's the-
I heard Z versus Zulu.
so you should send CQ 2 or 3 times, say this is your call sign a couple times, and then listen. And I guess they're recommending that you send it phonetically, unless of course you're doing CW.
You could send it phonetically. see.
Well, actually, you could.
Confuse a lot of people.
Lots of extra people.
Give them a lot of chances.
Yeah.
Which of the following indicates you're looking for an HF contact with any station?
Um,
Now, if it was CW, what did you do?
tune to another.
You added a K, right?
What?
You added a K to say any station.
Oh.
After your CQ,
Yeah, CQ call sign and K.
Don't put DE in there.
I'm going to get you into CW.
Yeah.
Actually, I did that request in,
Yeah, CQ, DE.
FT,
call sign,
no,
okay.
Yeah.
PSK. They would, when you type your message, you hit K at the end.
Yeah.
I think this thing says to do KN.
Well, KN is when you're looking for a specific station.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're communicating back and forth, me and you, they would just say K.
Hmm.
But now they're saying they do KN.
Well, for CW anyway. Most of the time, when you make a contact, you exchange a signal report, which is your RS or RST, depending whether it's phone or CW. If you're, let's see, which one is it? Oh, we'll get to it. There's one where instead of a signal report, you actually send a grid square
FTA or
in one of the, no, you
Yeah.
normally do signal report in
Indeed.
FT8. But, well, we'll get to it later. If your signal's very weak, you know, you you may not be able to up your transmit power, and you may not be able to switch to a different antenna. So here, what do they call that? SOL?
Yeah, somebody say try later, if you have condition.
Why are signal reports typically exchanged at the beginning of an HF contact? Let's see, more on the phonetic alphabet. It makes it easier to decipher somebody's call sign. It actually gives me more time. I have a hard time remembering call signs. Sometimes it's easier, the phonetic one.
scrap paper, I just write it. Don't write them.
Um, Does anybody use the phonetic alphabet in a contest? It would seem like that would slow you down.
I think we almost always do that.
Do you?
Call sign, yeah. That's why everybody wants a 1x2 call sign to keep it short.
Oh, yeah.
Well, like if you're, well, this QSO party, we're gonna do the Florida QSO party. The exchange is 59 BRE. Bravo Romeo Echo.
Okay.
What does that stand?
Bravo.
Brevard.
See, here in Florida, our exchange is our signal report with the bar 59, and then your county.
Oh,
Everybody from other places are looking for all the counties in Florida.
oh, I got you. Okay.
We can't quite do the zombie one, which is.
If you get all the counties, do you win?
We
If you get all the counties, do you win?
win a little sticker, I think it's.
Oh, okay.
And yesterday I was doing a photo, and guy couldn't make out my call sign. And I said, zombie woman chaser, and he laughed all the time.
But you got it.
I says, I got that one, and he says, I'm gonna put that in my top list of my favorite.
Okay, the main thing is that FCC regulations always apply, even during contesting, except for emergencies. So which of the following are examples of the NATO phonetic alphabet?
Dog.
Alpha's military, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what I kind of remember learning a long time ago. Alpha Baker Charlie.
Yeah.
So I guess instead of making as many contacts as possible, should change that to as many points as possible, right?
Only some people.
Oh, only some people. You have to identify your station abiding by the normal FCC regulations. And there are many clubs like PCARs that promote contest operation. I would say of the clubs around here, that's definitely true.
This one this weekend is the Florida contest.
Right, but that's kind of most everybody does that one. The KSC club doesn't do that many contests. They do that, and
We don't sponsor it.
well,
Participate.
but you participate in most of them.
That's a good thing.
Which of the following is required when participating in a contest on HF? QRP, which stands for very low output power. The standard is, I believe, 5 watts on CW and 10 watts on phone. Now, some
It's on
people,
FTA.
huh?
Is it on FTA, 10 watts as well? I wonder? Did you
Well,
see QRP on?
Well, I think
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
because it's peak at low power, which is kind of 5 watts.
Uh,
That's what it, so essentially it's the same.
But the people on FT8 that say CQ, QRP, they are running low power.
Yeah,
10 watts.
10 watts or less.
Or 5 watts or whatever.
That's the carrier.
I think they can run 10. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It's 10 should be the limit, although people run more than that.
Oh,
I put it down to 10 and do QRP on FTA, and I'm just amazed at the stations I get.
yeah, very little difference.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Or trying to convert a CB radio to 10 meters, or it's always 10 meters.
Yeah.
AM,
Oh,
it's pretty much, because the CD, that's.
Our
yeah.
Indian River Club has a QRP once a month, like on the third Saturday. Usually go to one of the parks around here. Bravo?
Well, the 7.
Bravo. Logging, FCC does not require you to keep a log anymore. So even when the FCC inspector comes to visit your station, which could be any time they choose, although I've never heard anybody having a visit. Because there's only a couple FCC things in the country. It's still advisable to keep a log. In case there's some sort of request from the FCC from some event that happened that they may ask you. Plus, it helps you verify contacts in case, you know, you've submitted log files to Logbook of the World and, you know, somebody else, and then there's a question on one of the things and you get a email or message about it to verify that contact, and you can't, if you don't have it in the log, you can't very well go back and say, yeah, I made contact with the guy or didn't. Why do many amateurs keep a station log? The volunteer monitor program were volunteers that enlist to look for rules violations. The whole point of it was to promote self-regulation, because you never know if there's somebody lurking listening to you. And they use direction finding to try to isolate violators. I guess one of the most common things is somebody with the key down on a repeater. It happens a lot, actually.
The repeater's time out after a little bit though.
Usually, I think it's supposed to be 3 minutes without without somebody taking action. That's one of the requirements for remote operation. You have to have some mechanism to do that.
I think this one, they can call them on the phone or shut it off.
Yeah, most of them will use like a 220 link into it for control, or, you know, telephone or something like that. Because very seldom is the control operator actually at the repeater.
Yeah.
Especially if it's up on top of it.
Yeah, it's hostile.
We talked short path and long path, where the long path's opposite direction from the short path. How to make contacts by doing CQ. This is your call sign, and then listening. Give signal reports depending on the conditions. The NATO phonetic alphabet starts with Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta. Contest, you must identify your station per the normal FCC regulations. QRP is low power transmitting operation. Quite a lot of interest in that around here, actually. And you should keep a log even though you're not required.
I guess QRP, yeah, see a lot of quota.
Do what, man?
A lot of people do quota QRP.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's several. Chuck Green considers anything, below